Welcome to WordPress Basics, Module 4, Adding Audio. Okay, we are at the last lesson in this Module 4. And in Module 4, we talked about how to add some extra elements to your blog post or your pages. We talked about images and we talked about video a good bit. Now we're going to talk about audio. And just in case you're wondering, audio is just as enticing as video. Sometimes when people are on the internet, it's easier for them to, put their headsets on and listen to a podcast or audio instructions or, anything that you can supply for them. Sometimes that's a little bit easier for them to do than looking at a video. So if you see a place where you can add audio, I definitely, also would encourage you to add that as one of your featured content items. So what we're going to do in the last video, the last video, I did not show you how to upload video mainly because video can be so huge in file size that I didn't really want to show you or take the time to upload the video to this particular demo site, but I am going to upload an audio file and I'm also going to upload a picture so that you can see how the process works. Usually audio files are not quite as big as video files, and the way I'm going to show you how to pull in the audio file, later on we'll come back to it when we get to plugins, and I'll show you how you can actually add a player that'll give a nice look and feel to your MP3 file, which is actually what we're going to upload. There are usually two versions of audio that you can use. Really the best one is MP3, but you also can use a WAV file, which is a .wav. I have those listed in the write-up underneath this video. MP3s are best because they're usually compressed and they don't take up as much space file size wise. But I believe some players will let you use a .wav file if you have those. So what I'm going to do, I am on the post area, and for this particular lesson, I'm going to start a new post. So I'm going to go to add new. And this is going to be a podcast. It doesn't have to be a podcast, but for this particular lesson, I'm going to call it a podcast. Let's say this is podcast number 1. We just decided to start this. Now, there's lots of things you can do a podcast, way past your blog, but I'm not going to go into that here. So what I'm going to do is, and I think I want to add a podcast category. So I've added the title, and because when you do put your blog post together, you want to make sure it's in a category. I'm going to click down here. I'm going to scroll up a little bit where it says add new category, and I'm going to type in podcast. Just so when I get ready to, once I get 10 or 20 podcasts, I'm able to go back and find them relatively easily. So I'm going to click add new category, and you should now be able to see where podcast is checked. For this particular one, I am going to actually upload an author. She did a record. This is an author I worked with a few months back, and she did some recordings for her virtual book tour that I did with her. So Her name is actually Pat Rayburn. So I'm going to type in her name. And this recording that I'm going to upload, I think the one that I chose was about love. So I'm going to put that as a tag and add it. So I have all the elements that you need for the blog post so far. A title, we have a category, and we have some tags. Now, I probably should put a lot more than 2 tags, but for now, I just want to make sure you're following that kind of system of making sure you fill in all the information you need for the search engine. Now, for this particular, I'm going to put a little bit of text. I'm going to say, listen to Pat Rayburn as she talks about the virtue of love. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's kind of the gist of the MP3 that I'm getting ready to upload. So you notice I'm in the HTML section. I don't have to be. I could be in the visual section. I just happened, that's where I stopped off last when I was in the last lesson. But I'm going to press return. And what I want to do now is actually add the MP3 file to this post. So anyone who wants to listen to it, they can. So I'm going to go up to, and we have add audio. And that's real easy to see. It's down, has a little music icon. So I'm going to click on that. And I actually am going to upload these files from my desktop. So they're not in the media library yet. So I'm going to select files. And my computer is a little slow. Okay, I want to, got some crazy things coming up, but I want to get to this demo folder that I have right here. And I have a couple of files. These files I uploaded in the first lesson in this module, but I have a picture of the author and then this MP3 file. Actually, it was called Listen, the one that I copied over, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to select those 2 files, hit open, and as you can see, it's crunching away. It has uploaded the picture and also uploaded the MP3 file. And you can tell it gives you this nice little icon next to it and it has the file name. Notice the MP3 at the end. And it lets you know the file type is audio. And if you wanted to give someone this URL later, you could actually copy and paste it someplace else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And I think I want to go back and make some changes. So I'm going to close this out. Let's see. This is listen to Pat Rayburn as she talks about the virtue of listen. Well, I'm going to change this. Listen to Pat Rayburn as she talks about the virtue of listening. And then, and you can do this, you know, if you're working on a blog post and these tags and your text doesn't match, you can just get rid of it. And I'm going to put listening, add that as a tag. Okay. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to add the picture first. I'm kind of stylizing a little bit as I'm talking. So I drop my sentence down and I'm going to go back to add an image, is the first icon. Now, I already have this in my media library, so I'm going to go over to the last little selection here, media library. And I just uploaded it, so I'm going to click show. And remember, you can rename these. I kind of renamed it when the author took the photograph. It has kind of the name that the digital camera gave it. I'm also going to copy this in the alternate text section just to kind of cover my bases. It doesn't have to be aligned. I think I'm okay with where it is. I like this 300 by 198 medium height. That works for me. So I'm going to insert into post. So right now, this is my podcast I'm working on I have this author, and I'm going to put my cursor at the end of the sentence and press enter. I actually would like to add the podcast or a link, in this case, to the MP3 file where people can listen. So I'm going to go back to add audio. This up under the upload insert or next to it. And remember, I already uploaded this, so this is in my media library already. Now notice, if you remember a while ago, when I hit add an image, it automatically took me to the images section. We have 5 images here. But when I said add audio, it automatically took me to the audio section. So this is really nice to kind of keep your media split up. And if you have video or if you have documents, it'll also split it up across the top, so it keeps it really nice and separated for you. So I want to click on show, and I think I'll change the title of this just a little bit so it'll make a little bit of sense. And her name's Patricia, but for these purposes, I'm just calling her Pat Rabin. So Pat Rabin talks about listening. Okay? Now what I want to do is I'm going to insert this audio into the post. Okay? So actually what happens is, you can see it took the title that I placed on that particular screen and it made it the link, the actual title of the link. So since I did that, I'm going to actually take this sentence away because that's kind of redundant to say the same thing, together. So I'm going to take that away and bring that up. So we have our link to our MP3 file. We have a picture. Let's go ahead and publish this. I could have saved this as I went along. The nice thing about WordPress, if you notice, is it will actually kind of save automatically for you. Don't take that for granted. If you can save the draft when you can, go ahead and do that. But it does, as you move along, it does actually save as you're moving along, which is kind of nice. Anyway, let's go ahead and publish this, and we'll show you how this looks in the browser. Let's see, I'm going to open this link in a new tab and move over to our demo website. There is our new post, our podcast with the picture. And if I click Pat Rabin Talks About Listening, what it'll do is it'll actually pull up the MP3 file. Now, this isn't the best way to do this. Actually, the best way to do this is to have a player underneath Pat Rabin's picture so that you can have the person actually press play, and then they can kind of hear what the interview or what the audio is about while they're there. So that's the best way to do that. But I'm actually going to, like I said a little bit earlier, I'm going to introduce that to you a little bit later in the module when we talk about plugins, because there's a couple of plugins you can use that will help you create a player.
This is Patricia Rabin, and I'm the author of the 1-year God's Great Blessings devotional. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 20. Listen to His voice and hold fast to Him, for the Lord is your life. If we listen, God blesses us with eternal life. Are you a good listener? If not, why not? If you could make one change today to listen better to God, what would that change be?
Okay. Well, as you can see, it actually pulled up, depending on the browser that you use. Like, I'm a big Google Chrome fan, so that was the MP3 player that comes with Google Chrome. If I was using Firefox or Internet Explorer, the MP3 player would look a little different. But like I said, in a later module, we'll actually put a player on this page where you don't have to actually click away from it. But I did want you to know and just see, and I'm going to go over to the media library. And now you can see this is the actual library. The library kind of shows the media files in order, based on the most recent one that you added. So as you can see, the last two, or the most recent ones we added, was the audio and the image of the author. And so it keeps track of it up here for you. Okay, we're back and we're continuing with Module 4, adding audio. In the first part of this video, I talked about how you can upload audio. But in this part of the video, I want to talk about how you can do something similar to what we did with video. If you remember in the lesson where we talked about adding video, we went out to youtube.com and vimeo.com. And we just grabbed the embed code that those websites provide and we added those to the blog post. Well, you can do something similar with, we're going to use for this example, blogtalkradio.com. And I'm going to switch over to my personal author website so you can kind of see visually what I'm talking about. This is my website, towermoody.com. And I am currently in promotion mode for my upcoming novel. As you can see, When Rain Falls. Shameless plug here. But what I've been doing is, for my blog, I have been keeping up with the radio shows that I have been interviewing. I like to keep an archive of that on my blog post instead of trying to go to that radio show and locate the interview later. So I'm just going to click and show you an example of one that I recently did just this past weekend. If you notice, there is this nice blog talk image that is on my blog, and if I press play, which I'm not going to do, it will actually let me listen to the interview that I did with the radio host. And that's something that's really neat. And some people are aware of that, some people are not. If this is something that you do, if you maybe not just blog talk, but if you are interviewing with someone with a podcast, you might see if they have the ability to be able to add the code to your website. So this is something that I want to show you how easy it is to do, just like the video was. And so the first thing I'm going to go back to our demo site, and I want to create we'll create a new podcast post for this. So we're going to hit add new at the top, and I'm going to call this, just for our purposes, podcast number 2. Remember, you want to categorize your blog posts. And for this particular one, I think I'm going to have quite a few tags. Let's see, it was the Certain Ones radio show. And I wasn't the only author on this particular show. There was author Pat Simmons, myself. We were both authors. So we'll put authors. And we both write Christian fiction. So I'm going to add that. And that's pretty good. That's at least 5 tags. And I think they're pretty descriptive of what the show is going to be about. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to kind of bring my cursor down a little bit. And I'm going to say, listen to interviews with authors Pat Simmons and Taor Moody on the Certain Ones radio show. Okay, so I have my text, the descriptive text that will go along with my podcast. Now, remember last week when we were adding embed code, you don't really want to add it to the visual tab. So I'm going to go ahead and click over to the HTML tag, and HTML tab, and don't know why, but it likes to put this little thingy in there. I'm going to delete that because we don't need that. And just for the purposes of, it does kind of save for you, but I'm going to hit save draft anyway, because I'm actually going away from this page for just a minute. And you know, when you're on the internet or on the computer, anything can happen. So I saved my draft. I'm going to go click over. I actually already pulled this show up, and because it plays automatically, I thought I would go ahead and pull it up and make sure you don't have to hear that audio. So real simple and easy. Underneath the most Blog Talk Radio shows, there is an embed this episode. So I'm going to double click on that. Not double click, you can just click on it. And here's your embed code. If you notice, this is the preview. That's how it looked or similar look. It didn't look quite that way. It didn't have all these icons. Or there were different icons, but it looked kind of similar to my website that I showed you a while ago. Let's see, I'm going to grab this corner here because I just want you to stretch it out so you can kind of see the code. And I'm going to go in here and copy. You could do a Control-C on your keyboard to copy. And then I'm going to go back over to our post. Remember, we're under the HTML tab, under that HTML editor. I'm going to click right above the sentence, and then I'm going to do a Control-V, or you can just right-click if you're on a PC and do a paste. And see, I'm going to kind of drop that down. It's kind of close in there. But you see, that's a lot of code. That was more code, I think, than the YouTube and Vimeo gave you. But that's the code you need for it to work. So I'm going to go ahead and I just want to click back on visual to see what it looks like. Notice that it gives you this yellow box. When you see that, you know that's kind of where your podcast or your audio is going to sit from Blog Talk Radio. And it does provide this information, which I think is okay, you know, to keep that information underneath. I would, you know, not mess with this. You saw how much code there was. If you don't have to mess with that particular code, I wouldn't if you didn't have to. Anyway, let's go ahead and publish. And we'll look and see what it looks like on the demo website. Okay. And this time I'm just going to go up here. You can, after you publish or you update a particular post, usually it'll give you 2 places where you can view it. So I'm going to click here to view post. Okay. I'm going to scroll down. And it actually brought me directly to the post. So you can see, here's the podcast. And this particular theme, some themes will show the tags underneath. So you can see all the tags that I added. And you see that we had added it to, I added it to the podcast category. Let me just go out to home to see how it looks with the other posts. So we got podcast 2, and our podcast 1, and our video blogs from the last couple of lessons. So this is really shaping up. As you can see from what we talked about in this lesson and the previous lessons in Module 4, audio, video, images, any way you can really, you know, not make your blog quite so text heavy, that is great on the internet. So I hope you enjoy this module. We will get back together again for Module 5 coming up soon. If you have any feedback about this module and the recent modules before, or the previous modules before this one, definitely include your feedback on the page, or you can email us at info@diywithty.com.